Welcome to the 3030 Health Podcast. The following discussion is for education and entertainment. It is not intended to diagnose or treat disease. Please do not apply any of this information without first discussing it with your doctor. Here is your host, Dr. Ruiz.
Hello everyone, super excited about today's show. I decided to do something a little bit different. Instead of releasing a pre-recorded podcast, I decided to go on Facebook Live and interview one of my dearest friends, Dr. Tyna Moore, about her new book, Pain-Free and Strong, The Secrets to Regaining Vitality, Improving Mobility, and Restoring Energy. During our show, we answer questions from people listening to the live interview. I hope you enjoy the show. Awesome. Super excited to be here. You guys get to see what I do for a podcast. And if you have any questions or anything, I think you can ask questions. I'm here with my super friend, Tyna Moore. Tyna, how are you?
Hello. I'm good. How are you?
Just excited to be here. I love talking to you, and you were on my podcast. I think you were episode 6. So having you again is kind of cool, and because a lot has happened since the last time I spoke to you. So what's going on?
Well, I wrote a book.
Yeah, that's it.
I actually wrote it pretty quickly, which is funny. It's been mulling around in my brain for about a decade, and I finally put it down on paper. So it's called Pain-Free and Strong, which is the same name as my podcast and the same name as my online program, and it's basically the secrets to, regaining vitality, longevity, mobility, and it's kind of the quick and dirty on what I figured out over the past 10 years in practice.
10 years of knowledge, and it's probably like a super expensive book, a couple $100 to get this, all your ideas on paper.
Nope, it's free. I'm giving it away for free.
I can't believe that,
Well, I decided, I've been in practice for 10 years doing predominantly pain and musculoskeletal medicine, and I have to keep explaining to people the basics over and over again that if you don't deal with these 6 foundational pillars of health, that none of the treatments work. I think we've talked about that on your podcast in the past, that none of the fancy, expensive treatments that I do, like prolotherapy or PRP or stem cells, work if the patient isn't healthy overall. So I just kind of threw it down there. It's very much my tone. It's under 100 pages. It's easy to read, and I just wanted to put it out there in the world. So it's free.
Can you rattle off the 6 foundation things that you're talking in this book?
Sure. So number 1 is mindset. You've really got to get your head wrapped around your pain. And I live with chronic pain. I understand it very well, very intimately. I don't think there's a day that goes by that I don't have pain somewhere in my body. So I get it. But a huge piece of this is mindset and just shifting your mental game. Number 2 is sleep and rest, and before you ask anybody to do a lot of hard work, which is sometimes it feels enormous when you have pain that you've kind of got to climb the mountain, resting and sleeping are critical. And I talk about why. I go into detail on that. 3rd is food and gut. And I could write a whole book on the microbiome and how it affects your pain. But interestingly, I could only, I had to keep it short and simple. I also, and not to digress, I wrote this book I wanted my daughter to be able to read it. I basically wanted to write something for my 17-year-old daughter who would understand it. I wanted elderly people to be able to read it. I wanted anybody to be able to read it. You don't have to be a rocket scientist. So it doesn't need to be complicated. Food and gut, and then movement matters, and what kind of movement. And I love strength training. I'm obviously a fanatic about that. So here's my Chihuahua. I should have written a whole chapter on dogs. I should write a whole book on that. Anyway, movement, strength training, why muscle is medicine, go into the science of that, very well referenced. All of it is. Hormones is another big picture. I think that without adequate understanding of your hormones, it's pretty difficult to get on top of your pain. So even if you're not able to access, somebody who can prescribe bioidentical hormones, you don't always need them. It's important just to understand what they're doing and what the players are and how they're affecting your pain. Gratitude, some kind of spiritual practice. It doesn't have to be religious, but just, mindset, meditation, gratitude, that kind of picture in there. Like what can you be? I think when we have pain, especially when we have chronic pain, we start getting hung up on what we cannot do. Like, oh, I cannot do this anymore. I cannot do that anymore. But what can you do? And how does that translate into how you live your life? Because life is short. And I lost my mentor in 2013 to cancer, and he was one of the healthiest guys I've ever known. And so for me, this book was just, it was written for him too. Just, like, life is short. And if you don't get your shit together, I should have called to get your shit together.
I was just having a conversation with someone on Facebook yesterday. They were kind of sad that, genetic testing is expensive. And my mindset is like, you know what? Screw it. If it's expensive, you don't need to do it because it doesn't matter what your DNA says. Your DNA is already set, preset, cannot change the sequence of amino acids and things that the DNA is dictating. But you can change the expression of the DNA and your epigenetics, and you don't need a paper that tells you, oh, you have ApoE or your MTHFR is, what you need to do is go back to those 6 basics. And if you go back to those six basics and you completely change your lifestyle, and that's the toughest part, changing your habits, then the bad stuff is going to get suppressed, and the good stuff is just going to be expressed. So you are not, your DNA, you're what your DNA is actually expressing.
Absolutely. And, genetics loads the gun and lifestyle pulls the trigger. So I just recently got my MTHFR tested, if you can believe it. People were shocked. They're like, you waited that long? And I was like, I didn't need to know what I already knew, which was actually turned out to be a hot mess. My MTHFR mutations are pretty bad. And if I had listened to those 10 years ago, I would have, I don't need to know. How I live my life determines how my phenome, which is your phenotypic expression of your genome, is the manifestation of your genetics. So how I live my life and the foods I eat and the things I do is how my phenome expresses, right?
We can get so analytical, and we can get so we can miss the forest for the trees because we have a license. We can tinker with like individual hormones, and we can tinker with specific supplements. But I was just having a conversation a couple of minutes ago with one of my good friends, Dr. Langland, and we were talking about fish oil and things like curcumin, and how taking supraphysiological doses of fish oil, which is a polyunsaturated fatty acid, can oxidize, create radicals, and do exactly the opposite of what fish oil is supposed to do for your heart health. Same thing with like curcumin. If you take supraphysiological doses of curcumin, it kind of, doesn't cross the blood-brain barrier, and it kind of doesn't work. But if you take fish oil in physiological doses, as in like when you eat with eating some sardines, or your curcumin, you're putting a little bit of curcumin on every single one of your meals, that physiological dose actually goes around all the mechanisms, and it actually does what it's meant to do. So that's kind of cool how we nature has given us all the answers, and we believe that we're smarter than nature, and we circumvent those, and we think more is more, and then we get into a lot of trouble. So in your book, are you touching on like different injection therapies, or that's a completely different conversation you want to have with your patients?
I purposely left all treatments and therapies out of my book. There's nothing in there about supplements. There's nothing in there about regenerative injection therapies. I specifically did not want to get into it with any of that, because the whole point of the book is that if you don't address these 6 pillars, if you're not leading with a powerful mindset, and you're clear on what your goals and what your objectives are, if you're not sleeping and resting adequately, if you're not eating healthy food, food is information, and food is everything to how our microbiome shifts, and our microbiome is everything. If you're not moving regularly and strengthening your body, and if you're not practicing some kind of gratitude or appreciation, or having some kind of like stillness of the mind on the regular, none of this works. I did mention briefly in the sleep chapter that there are some herbs that can help with sleep, but I didn't even go into detail. It's like in a passing sentence. So the goal is to have a book that I can just hand to people and be like, these are the important 6 things. Beyond everything else, right? And that's all free.
And that's why I have a podcast, because people are spending a lot of money to come see us as doctors, and that I want that to be doctor time. I don't want to talk about gluten. It's important. If you have a question about it, I can answer it. But you can go to my podcast and I can tell you, go listen to this specific episode, and then that'll explain that. Katie Clinton says, "Hi, Dr. Tina." She loves it.
Hi, Katie.
uh,
Oh, Katie.
so being able to have this information for our patients, it's just so important. Now, for people out there that are suffering from chronic pain, you kind of built your practice around injection therapies. So, what's your elevator speech for, like, let's start with prolotherapy?
As in, what is prolotherapy?
Yeah, what is, like, someone says, what is Dr. Tina doing with injections?
So prolotherapy is just fancy sugar injections. Honestly, it's a concentrated, osmotically concentrated injection of dextrose into degenerated or compromised ligaments, tendons, or joints. And the whole point of that is that it all comes down to cell signaling. If you inject a hyperosmotic solution into a region that's been compromised, the body rushes into healing it. It thinks it's been injured. It's a modulated, inflammatory response. And so the body comes in and gives it a second or third shot at healing. And it downregulates pain. Dextrose does all kinds of cool things in the body, but most importantly, it just downregulates pain and it starts to regenerate those tissues slowly but surely. And I mean, it's that simple. And it only works, though, in somebody who's in like a healing mode or a regenerative mode, right?
So it's almost like a hormetic effect. Like if you're familiar with hormesis, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. So like, for example, exercise, when you lift a barbell, you're actually tearing muscle. And when you tear that muscle, your body comes back and heals that muscle and it makes you stronger. And that's why you can advance and progress. But you're seen as controversial because you won't inject just anyone that shows up to your practice.
Right. I know. I get a lot of slack for this.
I think that is one of the reasons, like, we connected, because, like, I admire that so much. Because when you're starting a practice, when you're out there, it's rough out there. If someone walks in and you have a hammer, everyone is a nail. And I know that there's a lot of people there's people walking in and they're like, I have shoulder pain. Let's inject it. I'm constipated. Oh, let's inject your shoulder. So what's the reason why you turn people away and say, hey, get your shit together, and then we can talk about injections?
Well, it's tough because I get the most grief, honestly, from other practitioners, and they don't understand why they refer me patients and I won't take them. And we figured it out. We're accepting about 1 in 4 patients at this point that apply. And I'm not trying to be a snob. I promise. I spent 10 years doing this, and I spent another almost 2 decades prior to that working with Rick Marinelli, watching him do this work. And it doesn't take and it doesn't hold if the person is not in healing mode. So a really good question to ask yourself is, if you were to slice your finger open, do you heal very quickly? If the answer is no, you're probably not in the right spot to go get these regenerative injection therapies. I can cut somebody's pain with prolotherapy. It's all out of pocket expenses. If your doctor is billing insurance for you for it, it's actually fraud. So it's all out of pocket expenses. And if I'm going to have somebody divvy up cash to get a procedure, I know that I'm good on my end. Like, I'm not worried about the technical skill. The technical skill to do these injections requires a lot of training, but more importantly, the orthopedic knowledge of diagnosing things properly is really the hard part. And so I know that I'm solid on both of those. I feel very confident in my skill set there. The variable is how the patient's going to react. And so what might seem very simple and straightforward in a postmenopausal woman who's got kind of like that edematous, swollen, hormonally unsound thyroid thing going, and I inject her with Prolo, I could send her into a tailspin of pain for weeks. She could get pronounced pain, which is like, Prolo should be like nothing. Once you get Prolo, it should feel kind of good, achy for a day or two, and then you're done. And then these people go down into a tailspin. On the other side, nothing happens. If I don't pick my patients properly, nothing happens, and then they're unhappy, and I'm unhappy because that's not the goal. We want people to get better, especially if they're doling out money. So I think being in a place where they're sound and healthy and really understanding these foundational issues, if they're not sleeping, your pain comes from so many different places as well. So people want to believe, we have this reductionistic mechanical thinking of like, oh, you have knee pain, so it must be your knee. Honestly, a lot of times it's nothing to do with the knee. Osteoarthritis is a metabolic issue. It's diabetes of the joint in my book, and it's chronic inflammation. And all we're doing in some cases with these injections is just changing the microenvironment of the joint space. So in simpler terms, like, we're just changing the chemical milieu of the joint space. And sometimes that's enough to induce healing. But if the person's not a good healer, it's kind of a moot point, right? And then people get like stem cell procedures. They go straight for the big guns. Like, I'm going to drop $5,000 and get stem cells. And it's like, are you insane? You can't even.
You're type 2 diabetic,
Yeah, like you can't even get over a cold readily. Like throwing stem cells at this is not going to be the answer. And I think here's the deal, Guillermo. People come to me as a last resort with their pain, and pain is such a miserable personal experience. And I've lived with it. And they come to me. I'm the last stop on the road. If I fail them, if I inject them and it doesn't work, if I just say, oh, whatever, I'll just inject whoever comes through the door. If I accept them and inject them and it doesn't work, they've just lost that last glimmer of hope that they had. They're very unlikely to go find another prolotherapist or another doctor who does PRP. They're likely going to say, you know what, that therapy doesn't work. It gets a bad reputation. I get a bad reputation. But more than anything, the patient is left without hope that their pain will resolve. And that breaks my heart. So that's why I'm such a stickler.
We do injections, and you can pull PRP and you can look at that PRP solution, the platelet-rich plasma, and you can see someone that's inflamed and you're like, am I going to inject this into my patient? Is this going
concentrated?
Is this going to serve that patient? And I think that setting yourself up for success and playing those numbers is only encouraging your patients, or it's only helping your patients. So what are like some of the steps, or what's the litmus test that you have in order for you to accept a patient?
They have to be strength training currently. I love people wanting to start strength training. I love that. And nothing excites me more than somebody saying they want to get strong and they want to get on that path. And I love that, but I'm not the person to get them on the path. A strength and conditioning coach is. And it takes years to put on muscle. If we're just hanging on ligaments and tendons because we don't have any muscle, which I did for a long time. I know this story well because this is my story. Injecting those ligaments and tendons isn't necessarily going to cut it. Not much is going to happen. I mean, like I had so much therapy done to my shoulder as an example, and it never got better until I started doing military presses and kettlebell work and really strengthening now I've got big shoulders, but I'll tell you, as soon as I stopped training those shoulders, they hurt. So somebody needs to actually be conditioned already, I feel, for these therapies to stick. If they're in a lot of pain, I think starting with a little prolo with someone and then getting strong is great, but they have to come in strong. They have to be eating clean, meaning they need to be getting adequate protein. The body we're trying to induce collagen production and the body doesn't heal without that. So it's very difficult. I've seen it to be very difficult to try to get vegetarians or vegans really sound orthopedically with these therapies if they're not ingesting some kind of collagen. And then, generally just people who are kind of on the path. Like there's a lot of doctors that do what I do, and I don't really take severely chronic pain patients anymore. There's a lot of things going on with people who are in severe chronic pain. I know this because, again, I live it. Hormones, gut, all kinds of issues. I'm generally just looking to treat people. I keep active people active. So people who are kind of already on the path, I think they're better served to spend those dollars with someone with a good naturopath who can help them work through the hormone and the gut and all those issues and get into the gym and get moving. That's a better way to spend those initial dollars, because through that they'll come to me in a much better situation and shape.
And they might not need therapy.
Yeah, totally.
So
totally.
Things like for example, chronic infections like Lyme disease or EBV and things like that, it can itself present as chronic pain. And Ari Whitten just joined us too. He's the hormesis guy. We're just talking about hormesis. So being able to get rid of those chronic infections, getting rid of that chronic inflammation, getting rid of that gut permeability, being able to get rid of all that stuff might reverse your osteoarthritis. And that's what's important. Like I was explaining to someone yesterday how, as naturopaths, we're like, you can cure all those things by removing wheat. Yes, because when you have intestinal permeability, you're eating all these proteins and they leak into your bloodstream. Your body kind of makes immunoglobulins that attach to those, and those immunoglobulins also fit in different tissues. For example, psoriasis. It can fit on your thyroid. It can go into your different joints and destroy those joints. So yes, correcting your diet can fix all of those things, and it's not quackery. It's like been shown, and you can just go on PubMed and type autoimmune disease. And then the most inflammatory things that I see in my practice, are, believe it or not, gluten, wheat, sugar, dairy. And one of the things that we love, as being in this ancestral paleo space, eggs can be very irritating. Now, if we reverse the intestinal permeability, then we can reintroduce eggs. Maybe we can reintroduce some sort of dairy. But while you are inflamed, while you are in trouble, eliminating and going more into a specific diet is going to serve you better than injecting PRP, than injecting stem cells, than injecting Prolo into a joint.
Absolutely. And sometimes just moving the joint is all they need. Just moving it. I can't tell you how many people I cannot tell you how many patients have come to me, and I send them all to Industrial Strength Gym where I go, which is in Portland here. They're great, very kettlebell, strong first centered, and they never come back. And when I see them in the gym later, I'm like, hey, how are you? And they're like, my shoulder's great. I didn't need Prolo. I'm like, you just needed to move it. Literally, just move it and strengthen it. It's not rocket science. And what I'm talking about is not sexy. That's the problem. Stem cells are sexy. And what I'm talking about is not sexy. And people get up on me about it all the time. Patients get mad when I don't accept them. They say, well, then who can treat me? It's like, no, the point is you shouldn't be treated right now. That's what I'm trying to actually say. And that is a bold statement, I realize, and it doesn't always garner me fans. But I'm holding my ground on this one.
Can you talk a little bit about the connection between diabetes and frozen shoulder?
Yeah. So, gosh, I just did a whole presentation at the autoimmune conference at National University of Natural Medicine, and I talked about hypothyroidism actually is a huge driver of pain. And it was really compelling to see the looks on many of the doctors' faces because the information I was presenting was like, but I think about, frozen shoulder is absolutely, if your doctor does not, so who does frozen shoulder happen to first off, right? It happens to postmenopausal women, like 99% of the time, postmenopausal women. What does that say? That says hormones. I remember hearing that in chiropractic college, having spent all this time with Dr. Marinelli, understanding hormones. Wasn't a naturopath yet, wasn't even a naturopathic school, but I remember when they were presenting these musculoskeletal conditions and you'd have to memorize what age categories and genders it happened to. And it was like postmenopausal. And so we got that going. And then the whole blood sugar issue, when you've basically got dysregulated blood sugar and you've got, and often I think thyroid and other hormones go with frozen shoulder.
The thyroid test was developed, originally we would see lipoproteins, so like your HDL, LDL, and if those were elevated, then that meant that you needed thyroid hormone.
Yes.
So because
right?
it's like that pedal, it's like your BMR, your basal metabolic rate. If your hormones are not good, you're not utilizing your sugars, your proteins, and your fats.
Yep. And so one huge manifestation is frozen shoulder. Another huge manifestation is carpal tunnel syndrome. So these are things that people are getting treated all the time. People are looking under the microscope at the shoulder or the wrist and doing things to it, like it's some kind of mechanical structure to be messed with, cutting, sewing, surgery. And it's like, when you see bilateral anything, like any condition shows up on both sides of the body, red flag. I don't care if it's a 40-year-old man. If he's got bilateral knee pain and both of his knees are screaming, that's a red flag. Something is going on systemically. It's not a Prolo fix. Prolo might be a Band-Aid, but I do root cause medicine, and Band-Aids aren't really my jam. Like, they're nice, I get it. I'd be crippled without the occasional Prolo, but if my issue if it continues to persist, something's going on, and I need to really look at all the other things, right? I don't know if that was a good answer.
No, totally. It's being able to identify, so those glycoproteins that we're not able to digest, or an excess of calories, those glycoproteins are going to deposit into that joint, and then you won't be able to move your joint. And Jim is asking, what is the efficacy of introducing turmeric supplements for chronic pain and inflammation? Like, for example, lower back. Sorry if I'm off topic. No, you're not.
No, I mean, I love turmeric. I love it. I like, curcumin. I have a blog post on this on my website. Oh, let's just tell everyone the book is free and you can get it at my website, drtyna.com. So it's DRTYNA, or you can spell out the word Dr. TYNA, and however you want to get there, it'll lead you to the free book, and you can download it. It's a quick read, really easy to digest information. Um, I do talk a little bit about curcumin in there. Curcumin is just one of the active constituents of turmeric. Turmeric's the overall herb, and curcumin is a curcuminoid. I love curcumin. I love highly bioavailable forms of curcumin.
So are you using like liposomal?
I have, I play with all of it, but yeah, I'm really liking the Designs for Health one, the curcumavale right now, just because I don't take so many pills. But it's a wonderful anti-inflammatory, anti-cancer, tons of studies on it. But again, high, like you were saying early on, high dosing of anything, you really have to take the individual into consideration. That's why, I mean, it's kind of frustrating, right, Guillermo, when patients or non-patients ask for dosing online. I get that a lot. Honestly, I have to say, from other colleagues. How are you dosing it? It's
How are
like,
you dosing? Yeah, I'm more. My question is always like, what form are you using? Like we were talking a second ago about supraphysiological dosing, and how supraphysiological dosing is not as effective as getting what is nature. And a great example would be, we were talking about fish oil. Fish oil is amazing. If you take 3 grams of fish oil and you have bad digestion, you're not going to absorb it, and it's just going to become a radical, and it's going to just create more inflammation. Now, with things like curcumin, I would rather a person have, a curry once a week and microdose that curcumin every day, and that probably is going to be more in parallel with what we have evolved to receive, and use curcumin supplementation in like determined amounts of times. Like, let's do 30 days of curcumin. Let's make sure we're getting it every day. And a lot of things help with the absorption of curcumin. Like, and this is crazy because now I'm talking about like studies and in vitro studies that there's a compound in black pepper that makes the curcuminoids more bioavailable. So that's why you see a lot of this curcumin products have some piperine, to help you digest it. But getting those physiological doses every day might be better than getting that bolus. For example, with fish oil, instead of using 5 grams of fish oil or a big dose of fish oil, maybe some cod liver oil, which is more like a food, and has been used traditionally in so many parts of the world, and you're only getting like 200, 300 DHA and EPA combined. So then you look at those numbers and like, no, I want to get 5 grams. No. Take that every day, and that is going to be so much more beneficial for you because you're going to utilize all of it.
and I also use, when I take my curcumin and my fish oil in super physiologic doses, I do take high doses, but I use it. I'm going for pharmacological effect at the time. I'm going for like a wampin dose because I just did something that I know is going to make my hip pain flare up. But if that hip pain is persistent and you're a super healthy person, and I don't mean super healthy, I mean like you're of sound health. We have such a different gauge for sound health nowadays. I just always think of my grandfather and my parents, and like what there was. It just seemed like back in those days there was like this general level of fitness that everybody possessed. Like everybody could kind of get through PE class. Everybody could kind of,
Do a
people
push up.
knew to go. Yeah, everyone could do a push up. Everyone knew to go for a walk after dinner. Like there was just this inherent understanding of having a sound body. Those people do great with the therapies that I offer. And then, in my case, like I'm doing all the right things, but I've still got this hip issue. So now I need to jump to the regenerative injection therapies and figure out what's going on. Does that make sense? Like
Totally.
you don't start out at like bottom barrel health and then go for regenerative injection therapies. You kind of got to earn it. Like you got to earn the healing ability, because we want people in healing mode. And that's what the book is. It's like, I don't care if you're eating like a saint, if you're not sleeping or respecting your sleep, gone.
If you don't have gratitude.
If you don't have gratitude, right? Nothing heals. If you don't if you don't move regularly and strengthen your body. I see this a lot with our profession as naturopaths. A lot of doctors eating so perfectly, like almost to the point of orthorexia. It's so perfect, but they are skinny fat and they have no muscle on their body. I see this as a profession and I'm just like, guys, this is why I preach this. Like, put some muscle on, it kind of fixes everything. Like, once you put some muscle on your body, all the other things fall into place. You end up sleeping better and more soundly, and you end up really wanting sleep. You end up eating better because you just instinctually want to feed that muscle. You end up hydrating. You end up having gratitude because you're like, wow, I'm strong and I'm really grateful for the ability to move my body in these ways. So that's a big winner. But anyway, I digress.
Yeah, no, and to your point of earning it, I don't want anyone to have the impression that some people would say, oh, I never take drugs, I never take Tylenol, I never take, because in nature you don't have a Tylenol deficiency, but you also don't have a turmeric deficiency, and you don't have a curcuminoid deficiency. We're using this as tools to help us heal. But we got a root cause medicine. We got to go to the root cause. And then do you have low chronic back pain, Jim? Is it because you're not, maybe you're not walking, maybe you have decreased mobility, bad posture, and then using the turmeric or the supplementation to help you get to work in all of the things that you need to do, as in exercise, sleep, and all of that. So we need to make sure that we don't become what the other professions have become and rely on this band-aid medicine, and we need to get to that root cause.
Nothing works unless you work. That's what I always say. And I live that. I really do. I have rituals I do every day to keep myself healthy and strong and out of pain. And that's why I wrote the book, because I wanted to hand them a quick manual that says, this is the guide. Like, these are the things you have to do or nothing else will work. Because I don't want to be that person either. I don't want to be that doctor that's just applying passive care modalities to my patients. Here's a shot. Here's an expensive injection. Here's some fish oil. Here's some curcumin. Okay, see you later. Like, that's not why I got into medicine. I got into medicine to change lives and to teach people. And docere, that's our naturopathic tenet, doctor is teacher. And I feel really strongly that if I'm not teaching, and that's I think why both of us have built a podcast and an online platform, is because we want to reach millions of people and docere all over the place.
Doctors, because we have all this knowledge, we focus on the physiology of things and how can we turn these switches on and off. And then in the ancestral community, we focus on food and how can what foods can we move. We forget about movement, we forget about meditation, we forget about all of these different things that encompass and together create true health.
Yes. I was just talking to Jason Prawl, recording for my podcast, and he's launching the Human Longevity Project. And, he traveled the whole world looking at the blue zones and hanging out with the people in these areas. And he said it has so much to do with how they live their life overall, and really finding a purpose and happiness in life. And how that's what keeps people alive for long periods of time. Without purpose and without joy. And it's funny because you had told me to go see Hamilton. Play.
Hamilton.
I totally saw it yesterday randomly. I thought of you the whole time because I was like, I get it. I get why he was telling me to see this. And I had other people tell me that I had to go see it too, that I reminded them of Hamilton. And I'm like, why? And I think it's that, and it probably is a little bit of, my daughter's eyes. She's like, you're a workaholic. I'm not. I'm on a mission. I really am on a mission to peel back.
I'm getting goosebumps.
The shine. Yeah, the shine that's on healthcare. It's such BS. And there's so much lying that has gone on in our generation. I'm 44 now. And I remember when my mom still cooked with lard, and everybody went for walks all the time and just worked. They worked. People worked with their bodies. Television was like a special treat at the end of the night. And just to see how things have morphed and changed, and we can call it the obesity epidemic or what have you, but if it kills me, I don't care. I'm going to continue to tell the truth. And that's my goal. So this book is the first of many, I hope, that is pulling back the curtains on the great Oz, that is, because.
And, back to Hamilton, it's like we get in trouble and people get mad at us because we really believe this stuff, and we will go to war and put ourselves out there with these ideas. And it's not easy, and we get shot at and whatever. But as long as we are doing it for the right reason, I don't see any problem with you explaining why you don't take just any patient. And that's the mission. How are we going to get healthcare reform? Why don't we see? Why don't have like a rubric that every patient should have at least a three different supplements, maybe prescribe a couple of IVs and an injection. No, it's individualized medicine, and we're gonna just use the bare minimum to help that patient get better.
And looking at a patient's vitality, we can close it up with this. When a patient walks in the door, I'm looking at their vitality overall, right? I'm looking at how ready what kind of vital state are they in? Are they in healing mode? Are they in crisis mode? Are they super sick? Are they super vital? And you approach your patients, we approach our patients' treatment plan with an understanding of that vitality. So, for instance, if somebody's really weak, like myself, for instance, I need stem cells on my hip. I really do. I've tried everything else. It's not taking. My hip is in bad shape. I wasn't in the kind of physical health I needed to be in to go get the stem cell procedure done, because I wanted stem cells that were non-inflamed. I wanted them to be at full potency, and I wanted to make sure that I was able to go through the healing process that was necessary for that to take. And so I'm not going to go have that procedure done until my vitality was high, and that required me to pull back on some work and calm things down in my life and reroute how I was seeing patients. That's one of the reasons I'm picky about seeing patients, is because I'm very picky about who I'll have in my space. I think that's a healthy way to be. Life is too short to surround yourself with people you don't necessarily want to hang out with. And I'm not saying I'm judging people by any means. I mean that with friendships and with relationships and all of that. But, understanding vitality as like a marker. It's a health marker. It's a vital sign, right?
People might think that it's very subjective, but no, it's pretty objective. You can tell when a person, like you said, we talked very briefly about this last time we were together here in Phoenix, how there's some people that drain you, the social vampires, that drain you. And that's super objective. This is nothing that, subjective. This is like people tire you. But I know you have a call in 10 minutes. So give me your handles. Where can people get this ebook? Any presentations coming up? Anything going on that you want to tell my listeners?
Yeah, so I am giving away the book for free. It's called Pain Free and Strong, and it's at my website, drtyna.com. That's Tyna, and however you want to spell doctor will get you there. I actually have a free Facebook group if people want to join. And in about an hour, I'm going to go on there and do my first Facebook Live, because this is the official launch.
Awesome.
This actual right now that talking to you is the official launch of my book. So I'm going to be, for the next few weeks, I'm going to be very active over there, really just diving deep into each chapter and what it means to me and why I wrote it. So if you want to go over there, you can find it's Pain Free and Strong, the group. It's closed, but you can easily find it, and I will let you in before I go live today in about an hour. And, I would just like people to know that, I think you embody something that I see a lot of myself in you. When I met you, I was like, yes, this guy gets it. I am really, truly on a crusade to help, and I am here to help as many people as I can. And my physical practice is just one piece of that. Like, it's not about coming to see me as a patient. Like, that's not it. I'm grateful for the people who want to come see me as patients, but really it's a movement, right? It's a movement that we're both trying to do here. And so sharing our podcast, sharing our books, sharing the content that we make, that's really the best gift that anybody can give me, because I'm trying to change the world, honestly. I've been saying that since I was a kid. Like, I am going to change medicine, and I can't do it alone. So that's my rally cry there for everybody to get involved.
Like in Hamilton, it's not a moment, it's a movement.
Yeah, exactly. This is a long game.
It's a long game, and back to Hamilton, he didn't become the person he is, and he never truly saw what he created, because he died at an early age. Legacy is seeds that we plant that we don't get to see what happens afterwards. And that's what we're here for. We're trying to create a legacy and continue with this health movement and help as many people as possible. Dr. Tyna Moore. So amazing to have this my first Facebook Live, and I hope we continue working together, and I can't wait to hang out again.
For sure. Well, I'll be in Arizona soon for a Prolo course, so we'll have to hook up and hang out and go some food.
Awesome, and for anyone listening, I'm gonna be at PaleoFX this year, so get your tickets. It's like amazing conference, and just have fun and connect with people that think like you. So, Dr. Tyna Moore, I'm gonna join you in the other one because I wanna be part of your Tyna Moore group. So I didn't know that was available. So I'll be listening to you next.
Yeah, it's Pain Free and Strong, the group, and then the book is Pain Free and Strong, and it's at drtyna.com. So thank you so much for having me here today. It was super fun.
Thanks for being here, and I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, bye.